The Philadelphia Eagles dropped their preseason opener to the Baltimore Ravens 24-7. And while everybody's focused on the poor offensive showing, we're actually intrigued by several players that we feel like stood out to us, especially one defensive player that's actually thrown his name into the hat for some more starter snaps. We'll break down who that is and more on a new episode of Flippin the Birds. Let's get it.
He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Eagles.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome all to another episode of Flippin the Birds. I'm Brian Cameron alongside David Neese. Corey Nider will be joining us shortly, and we're going to try to keep our serious face on because we had too many laughs and jokes behind the scenes that led to it. But nonetheless, how you feeling today, man?
Great. I wasn't quite as happy 20 minutes ago, but yeah, after yapping with you for 10 minutes, yeah, it's good mood.
Look at that. All you need is 10 minutes in me. What was it when we were growing up? 7 minutes in heaven?
Yeah.
But speaking of 7 minutes in heaven, it wasn't the most heavenly feeling for the offense on Saturday night. But let's not focus on the negatives, right? Because we're talking about the backups playing in this game. But nonetheless, there were still guys that are backups that really intrigued us. But there's one specific player right now that has been all the rave throughout training camp. And he's been there for quite some time. The Eagles drafted, ideally, the guy ahead of him, Jahad Campbell, in the draft. And Jahad is a stud. And then they have Zach Bond. But Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is making a case for him to be a part of this key rotation. How do you feel about what he did Saturday night and what he's been doing in training camp this offseason?
Yeah, I think he really stood out Saturday night. And what was most impressive about that is you mentioned the other guy, Jahad Campbell, who is ahead of him on the depth chart. He outshined him. He played as many snaps, basically. They were both on the field at the same time. Trotter just plays a completely different game than Jahad does. You know, one was a 5th-round pick, Jeremiah. The other is a 1st-round pick. So you look at the talent and the athleticism, and Jahad probably does have more. But when you're talking about bloodlines and things like that, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. just understands the game of football better than almost anyone on that field. I mean, his instincts are unbelievable. And you saw it all night long when he was out there. He gets downhill in the run game. He disrupts. He had 5 tackles, I think, a sack. He tripped somebody up behind the line. They may have fell forward, but I mean, he was just having a night. And one of the things that stood out to me was earlier in the game, one of the linemen kind of pushed him after the play. And you could see him kind of go after him for a second and then compose himself. And then on the very next play is when he busted through for that sack. So you can see how, you know, just little things he takes away from the game that his fathers taught him and coached him up, just not to take things like that and to, you know, react immediately so they know somebody doesn't have the best of you. I mean, his dad, for anybody who remembers, when he was in training camp his rookie year, he was an absolute menace. And he was so terrible, just smacking the hell out of everybody, knocking them down to the ground. They had to tell him to stop. Like, he was hurting people. Like, I mean, he was just a madman. So you can see that Trotter has a lot of those traits, but he's dialed in at a lot younger age than, you know, Trot Sr. was. But yeah, I mean, I'm very impressed with him. I think he's an extremely good complement to Zach Bond, whereas I see Jahad Campbell more of the same ilk as Bond. They have the same kind of skill sets. They kind of play the same type of game. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. looks a little bit more like Nakobe Dean out there, and they just complement each other so well. And you know, it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up getting a lot more snaps than people think because of that.
And that's what I want to pick your brain about, right? Because it seems ideally it will be wise for the Eagles to invest in Jeremiah Trotter Jr. and Jahad Campbell to be their core linebackers for the future, from now into the future, right? Because one, it's the least expensive route. These guys they're homegrown, they're still on the rookie contracts. 2, they're both talented as hell. And I feel like Jeremiah has a little bit of a fire under his belly because his younger brother was just drafted this year as well. So it's kind of like, okay, my little brother's in the league now, so now I'm going to be compared to not only my father, but to him as well at some point. So you have that little older brother fire within him. But the Eagles have always not been reluctant of moving on from big contracts. Carson Wentz, A.J. Brown, Sam Bradford. Zach Bond is not owed a ton of money after this year. Could you see the Eagles saying, hey, after this year, Zach, you've been all great and everything that sort, but we want to invest in the future of our team and go the inexpensive route by going Jeremiah Trotter, Jahad Campbell, and then probably draft a guy in the second or third round next year that could be below them in the depth chart.
Yeah, I would say the only way that doesn't happen is if Jihad doesn't stay healthy. If he has a healthy campaign, he's good all year long. He is the heir apparent to that role. I think that was the plan long term. Um, they knew what they were getting last year, that he was coming off an injury, that they knew how long it would probably take for him to develop. And when he healed a little quicker than they expected, they didn't even know what to do. They started trying him at edge. They just tried to find any way to get his athleticism on the field. But what he's best at is exactly what Zach Bond does. That's the role that he will excel at. And I'm not saying Trotter would be the other man up, but he very well could be. It could be a Jihad Campbell, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., core going forward. And you look at the other depth that they have at the position, it's good. I mean, you got Chance. Yeah, there's one who's escaping my thoughts right now, but they have about 5 of them on the roster. Or Deontay Lawson, who's been really good. I mean, and he is a excellent player who had first round grades in 2024, and then he got hurt and kind of, he still had his most tackles in 2025, but for whatever reason he kind of took a step back as far as scouts go. But I do think that's the plan. And when you look at Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, both are going to need extensions, and they're going to get them. Somebody's got to be the odd man out. And until recently, the 2 positions that they've always kind of made the reduction at in order to be able to pay the corners and the defensive tackles has been linebacker and safety. And I think that's what they'll do again. The only way I see Bond still here is if he takes way less money to stay. I don't think that's going to happen because he's going to get paid a lot. Or B, Jihad Campbell doesn't stay healthy. But the fact that Bond also turns 30 this year, it's just kind of a plateau that the Eagles kind of move on from guys.
And it makes a ton of sense, right? Like you move on from Bond, you're going to owe him, I think, the amount to between $1 to $6 million, whatever case may be. Or you could possibly just trade him next year, right? You can find a way out by trading him, get some draft compensation, because he's definitely a top 15, linebacker in the league at the moment. We don't know how, like you mentioned, how it's going to look at season end if Jihad stays healthy or if Zach stays healthy. But nonetheless, the Eagles have a very, very great conundrum from a position that has been the weakness for years is out of nowhere has become the strength. The linebacker core is pretty damn elite. Our quarterbacks are pretty damn elite. So it's very interesting to see how they're going to go into the season and next season. What percentage do you give Jeremiah Trotter a chance of eating into starter snaps heavily? And I don't mean like the onesies and twosies. I mean like actually being part of an actual committee back there.
I mean, he's obviously the first man up if anybody gets hurt. So, just by that alone, I think he's going to get a lot of snaps until Jihad Campbell proves his health. I mean, you kind of do have to question it at this point. He's got to, put a campaign together where he plays 17 weeks during the regular season. But other than that, I do not think they want him doing the snaps. I do believe they want Jihad Campbell on that field. But it's hard to keep Jeremiah Trotter Jr. off when he's playing the way he is. And if he ends up being the better complement, there's nobody who would pull the trigger faster than Vic Fangio. And he basically does have autonomy over that. And he has stressed one thing since his time in Philadelphia, and that is if you're not healthy all of the time, you're not going to get on that field. So if Jihad has any problems with that, I could see Trotter getting, a lion's share of those snaps.
What I do like about Jeremiah Trotter's opportunity at the moment is the key word that you said there, Vic Fangio. We know that Vic runs everything on defense. Nobody's going to have a say above Vic when it comes to the defensive structure, the depth chart. It's all Vic, and I think that works in his favor because although they look at it, hey, Jihad Campbell's a first-round pick, Vic's going to say, yeah, but he's not, like you mentioned, he's not available, or he's not, performing up to speed. Jeremiah's right here. He's doing everything he needs to do, and everything I need him to do, let's get him starting. It's definitely going to be very interesting, but could you see a world where Jeremiah Trotter pushes so much in the starting role that they actually end up investing in Jihad as a pass rusher, or is it he's nowhere near where he needs to be for that kind of position change?
Yeah, I don't believe he's anywhere near that. I mean, they tried to do it a lot last season when they did need a body, and it's such a learning curve. It's such a different kind of game, and that's just not his strength. He's just like I said, he's more athletic. He can get sideline to sideline. He's just a different kind of player than that. I just, the fact he can drop back into coverage is a bonus, in that scheme. But yeah, I don't see them doing that. I mean, I don't remember what exactly Vic said this year. I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said that's dead and gone, that they're not looking into that anymore. So I would be very surprised. Like a lot would have to go wrong, I think.
Do you think that was a Vic experiment, or do you think that was a Howie Nick experiment? Because we know Howie has a say when it comes to
Yeah.
the game day roster, when it comes to 53 man. That's his wheelhouse.
Yeah. I think it was pressure from upper management to force the issue to get him on the field because he was healthy. He was a first round pick. And quite frankly, at the beginning of the season, when he was on the field, he was fantastic. I mean, then he got hurt and it took him a while to come back. But I do think there was pressure to get him on the field because for various reasons, up to and including the future of Zach Bond. I do think they wanted to see what they had in him, how he could, be utilized in different roles. And a lot of the fans complained about the season last year and how things were going. Well, upper management sees all of that too. They always say, "Oh, this guy's dumb. This guy's dumb." None of them are dumb. I mean, they were trying everything under the sun to see what they had with certain players at certain times. So, I do think it was probably a lot of pressure for him to do that. And going forward, I think that was a big reason Vic probably said what he did because that kind of ends, any effort in that going ahead.
So let's stick around pressure, right? Let's talk about pressure because I think you're gonna like this next topic. Like, let's look at Eagles. Whose stock actually went up on Saturday night and whose stock actually dipped a bit. Let's look at who's trending upward, right? There's two players I think we can put them together that I know you're very ecstatic about. Unfortunately, my guy, Michael Morris, was not. I mean, didn't really show out to the appeal that I expected it. Did he? I don't even think he played. Did he?
You
Is
know,
he
I
still
I
injured?
I don't know. Yeah, I was gonna say I thought he did, but I honestly don't know.
I know he hasn't shown out this training camp to the expectation I thought he would. Because I had him taking Steen's role away from him, but it seems like the offensive line is in a good place for the future right now. Because trending on NFL.com's Twitter, trending on everybody's Twitter was Willie Lampkin and Markel Bell. Not only because their size differentials comparison to Shaquille O'Neal and Steve Nash, but they showed up and showed out. And the Eagles stole Willie Lampkin from the Rams last year. We know it became a whole big, a secret code thing that the Eagles crapped on pretty much. But Markel Bell was a third round pick, if I'm not mistaken, this year.
Yeah,
And he seems to be the heir apparent to Lane Johnson's throne.
yeah, and I think that's a lot of similarities in how they play too. You saw him standing up in the 2 point. He even did that thing with his hand that Lane does to try to keep things the count right and all. It you know it looked very similar. So yeah, and everybody sees his gigantic size. There's nothing subtle about Markel Bell. But what was impressive was his technique. I mean, he actually looked, really good. So I thought that was really encouraging. His comfort level and pass protection and just his ability to get his body in position, I think was a little surprising because it's just hard to imagine a guy of that size just being able to, move that way. So I thought that was pretty impressive. And then you go to Lampkin, who's the opposite. Like I tweeted, they're the odd couple. One's humongous and the other's, looks like he's 5'6" next to these guys, But he repeatedly showed that quickness and his ability to get leverage and get under the pads. And you definitely see the fight in that guy because he drives people back 10 yards through the whistle. He's knocking people on their rear end. Like
Is he 5'11", if I'm not mistaken? Is it?
That sounds right. Yeah.
Okay.
But so many people had concerns over his size, but I don't think there are any concerns at all. You see the fight in him, that wrestler background. And, as odd as they look standing up next to one another, they played very well next to each other. And as I'm looking at my notes, I do see where I wrote about Michael Morris. He did play. And I wrote that I was very shocked how good he looked in pass protection as the guard. I already knew he was
my brand has a chance, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah. He's always been a solid run blocker, but his pass pro looked pretty good. That was all I wrote. So I don't know how many snaps he did, but yeah, I thought the offensive line, a lot of people come away from it a little concerned about it, but I thought it was very encouraging. And one thing I don't think's been talked enough about that is a really strong point after watching that game is just how well the offensive line played with Chris Cooper as the new offensive line coach. So many people were just terrified to have Stoutland leave the building. And you're starting to see now maybe why they wanted to make that change. They're going to be doing a lot of different teaching, and not to say that, Stoutland couldn't teach a lot of the same things, but he didn't want to. He does things the way he's done them. And they wanted to go in a different direction. And more importantly, there were head coaches and coordinators who didn't want to come to Philadelphia because they didn't want to run that system. So they finally made the move. But I think everybody got a little glimpse of the Eagles OL is in good hands, because they kept comparing it to the Vikings and, how they were. And that just, it's just not the same scenario. Every new team gives people different opportunities to do different schemes. And this guy is clearly comfortable in teaching. And there isn't one veteran who has said they don't like the change. Even Lane Johnson likes it. So, I mean, and he only knew Stoutland. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, the offensive line, they looked put together. At times it looked like, at times it felt like they looked at his sync, but I feel like that was more of a tell on, the vanilla offense that they were running, on top of the fact of Andy Dalton not looking his best self for his tryouts, and Tanner McKee not looking as confident behind the line of scrimmage as well. But it seems like we finally have a very promising backup group where if the Eagles going with their starting five and you're going with Markel Bell, you go with Willie Lampkin, you go with Michael Morris. Like, these are three solid guys that could play on the offensive line any given week and actually give you positive production. Like, gone are the days where we're going to be concerned if Lane Johnson's missing a couple games. No, Markel Bell's going to be there. I'm not going to say he's an automatic stud, but he's going to be good enough. And I think that's what we've needed for so long, and we haven't had. Like, Brett Toff was a great he was a great story last year. I know you loved everything that he brought to the table. The Eagles loved everything he did as well. But the Eagles have also been bitten in the past. Oh Lord, what's the offensive lineman that lost his glove in mid play when Carson was still here? There's a backup. Oh man, his name escapes me. But they've had sour offensive backup linemen for years. So it's weird that one thing I think I've praised over the last year is, like, it's weird to have such a very well-functioned organization. Like, how he knows what he's doing, and you're starting to see, like, the fruits of his labor year in and year out.
Yeah, and when you have a core identity that is the trenches, if they're not hitting, you're in big trouble, right? I mean, that's their identity. That's why they've invested whatever it was, $230 million on 2 defensive tackles. That's why they're, investing all the draft capital the way they have on the offensive line. And you're right. As far as like a Brett Toth, he was a career backup. These guys are being groomed to be eventual starters. They're not coming in here just to, try to learn how to do 3 positions and, just kind of be this O-line journeyman for the next 5 years. These guys are going to, push for starting roles. And all 3 of them. I think Micah Morris can push for a starting role as well. And they're really good. In fact, they've matured so quickly. I think that the offseason signing that they did to kind of insulate themselves in case the draft picks didn't work out, which was Michael Jordan, he might not even make this 53-man roster, because they're that deep. And I mean, if you're going to let somebody go, you can't let the guys who you've invested in and that are 22, 23 years old and have a bright future. As much as Philadelphia wanted LeBron James and Michael Jordan to be in the same city at the same time, I just don't know it's going to work out, man.
Who would have thought the Eagles would be dumping Michael Jordan and the Sixers would be signing LeBron James in the same offseason? So we're talking about good players that kind of showed out, right? I'm in between this next player because he has his moments during the season and he had his moments during the game as well. But then he had that one moment where at the back of the end zone, he hits that second gear and he gets an interception and everybody forgets about everything he did beforehand. But Kelee Ringo is a very interesting player this offseason because the Eagles, they have that cornerback. I mean, they have talent there. And Kelee, he hasn't been trending in the right direction for the last several seasons. Do you feel like Keely kind of did well to show his to improve his stock within the organization, or did he show enough to improve his stock outside of the organization?
I think he just showed the whole entire Keely Ringo experience in that one game. That's what you get with him. You get a guy who's really good on special teams. You get a guy who's going to get penalized for a 40-yard DPI, and then you're going to get a guy who just happens to jump around and get an interception. Do I think he's desirous across the league? I don't know. I mean, if you're willing to get rid of your top gunner on special teams for a 7th-round pick, that just doesn't make sense to me. I think he knows the system, and I honestly do believe he's going to be here. I would pretty much write him in on the 53-man roster. Do I think he's here next year? No, but I do think he's going to be here for the duration this season. I think they've drafted a couple guys who could maybe fill his role on special teams going into the future, but his value, how much he costs, how well he does know the system from being here all these years. He knows the organization. He's a good person. Everybody likes him. I just don't see him moving off from him at this time.
Okay, that's fair enough. So, looking at Saturday's game and looking at everything that led to that point in training camp, who do you feel like is an honorable mention leading into this week's practice, joint practices? Like who should Eagles fans keep their eye on besides the gentleman that we mentioned already?
Yeah, one of my favorite players who I think has completely flown under the radar, but I truly do believe he's going to make the 53-man roster. That's safety, and I am going to butcher this name, Kapena Gushikin. Sounds like anime. I don't know, man, but I'm just going to go with Kapena Gushikin, and his nickname is Gush. But
I mean, on paper, the name looks so dope. I'm not gonna lie. Like it does look like anime.
It's fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah.
We gotta learn how to pronounce it.
Yeah, I have no idea how to pronounce it, and I've spoke to him, and I don't know how to pronounce it. Like I don't know what I did. I guess I said sir. I don't know what I did.
Buddy, come here.
Yeah, kind sir. But his nickname is Gush, but man, it just as easily. I tweeted this out too. It could be glue. He just sticks on people, man. I mean, he's been just looking like a guy who's not trying to make the roster. He looks like a guy who's already forced his way on the roster, and he's starting to look like he belongs. And I'm really excited about him. I think he was, a really good find. They've been lucky with this position with UDFA just as recently with Reed Blankenship, but I think they might have something here. And the other guy is, well, I'll mention both guys from the international player. You have War Bernard, who everybody was talking about, and then the other guy who not as many was, but you're talking about him now, and that's Joshua Waru. And I don't think you can hide him anymore either. He's a fascinating athlete. He's been a pro athlete before. He represented Kenya on the national rugby team.
He's fast.
Yeah,
He's fast.
And his first drive, he had 2 pressures the first time he ever was on an NFL field. I mean, it was unbelievable. His athleticism is off the charts, and I'm not comparing him to this guy, but he has very similar vibes and very similar personality and work ethic, and it's Jalix Hunt. They are very similar personalities, and I'm really excited for him. And the unfortunate thing is I don't think you can expose either one of these guys to waivers without losing them now. So they're both going to have to make the 53. And then you're going to probably have to put one of them on the IPP and then keep one there. And everybody thought it would be Joshua Waru, on that exempt practice squad. But now I'm kind of thinking it might be Bernard who sits the year and watches.
Bernard looked a little. He still looks a little rough. He still looks like not a completely fine-tuned player. I think he has a way to go. The potential is there. The guy's strong as hell. He's built like a freaking tank, and he can move, right? But I agree with you. I think you don't expose either of them to waivers, right? You put Bernard on the IPP, and then I think you let Weru develop. I mean, he's gonna be in a room with Jalix Hunt, Nolan Smith, Jonathan Grenard, Like, and Arnold, I don't want to butcher his last name, but everybody knows who I'm talking about. Number 17.
Yeah, Arnold E.
Um, what is it?
Just Arnold E. That's
Arnold
that's
E.
what we're
Yes,
going.
Arnold E. We're gonna go with that. I think that's a solid group, and you allow Weir to play a little special teams here and there, but then you allow him to develop alongside a guy like Jalen Hunt, who I think is gonna be a big name next offseason because I think the Eagles are gonna pay him the big money he deserves. Um, but I 100% agree with you. Like Weir was first quit had a very quick first step, and I was actually pretty. It caught me by surprise because I was like, okay, like, is everybody just moving slow, or is he not doing what he's
Yeah.
supposed to? But he was quick, and he almost had a sack. I like his potential. I like Bernard's potential a lot. Again, it's such a weird. I'm a Mets fan, so it's such a weird thing to have a functional organization that
Yeah.
knows what they're doing position by position.
And we didn't even mention AJ Epinesa at that position as well.
Yeah.
They have a lot of depth there now, and it kind of looked like they did last year. But as soon as you got to camp, you realized it really wasn't what we all thought.
Aziz let me down.
These guys aren't looking like that last year, So I'm pretty excited about that. And you mentioned, moving on from Zach Bond, if they strike gold with a player like Josh Waru, you could see a potential Nolan Smith trade down the road to save money as well. So
you're paying Bernard already, and you're going to pay Jalen Hunt. I mean, it's
Jalen Hunt is so good, and he's so popular, and he's just such a well-rounded individual that I could see him being the face of the franchise, kind of in the mold of Brandon Graham, going down the road there. He's just that infectious of a personality.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with that. And it's not to throw dirt on Nolan Smith because I feel like Nolan Smith still has a bit of an untapped potential, but it's untapped because of the injuries, right? It's because of because of injuries, he's lost his role. He's lost snaps. Like Jalen Phillips came in last year, Brandon Graham came back last year. Now they have Jonathan Grenard, and they're paying $100 million for this guy. Like if Jalen Hunt, like you say, if Jalen Hunt does get paid, Smith is the odd man out because you have younger guys that could come in and you could sign a veteran off the street like the Falcons and the Browns did by sharing Smith, Darius Smith.
Right. And like you said, I love Nolan Smith. It wouldn't surprise me if he ended up with a 13 sack season and, just a plethora of pressures. I mean, he's an unbelievable talent, and he's in his physicality. He works out. I mean, he is an amazing athlete. It's unfortunate
as well.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate it hasn't worked out, but we all saw what he could do in the 2024 postseason. He wrecked that postseason, man. I believe he had the most sacks in Eagles history in one postseason. So the talent is there. It's just getting them to use it. But yeah, I'm not throwing him under the bus in any way, shape, or form either. He was one of my top 3 favorite players in that entire 2023 draft. Like, I'm a huge fan of that kid.
I was stoked when he got him at the second pick. It was
unbelievable.
like one of those things that just is a match made in heaven for Philly because we were coming off Hassan Reddick, and I feel like Nolan Smith matched that physicality, but he had a better head on his shoulders.
Yeah, absolutely.
But nonetheless, so these are guys that are moving in the right direction, right? So we have.
Can we touch on the offense just a tad?
Yeah, absolutely. So you have guys on offense that you feel like. Well, I mean, yeah, I know who you're going to talk about. So yeah, let's talk about the offense.
Well, I mean, for me, it starts with Sean Mannion. Like, I think a lot of people were so down because you look at the score and nothing's working. But I went back and watched the All 22, and what you notice is little nuances that they're utilizing in that offense. There was far more pre-snap motion. They were marrying the run game and the passing game. There were a couple of those outside zone runs. One of them popped for a pretty big gain. There were multiple formation changes going from 10, 11, 12. He didn't show much, but I think he showed a lot of subtle signs of what's to come. And you saw what they're practicing. And people were saying, oh, God, they're doing the same thing. Calcaterra's out there trying to block. You know what? He's trying to run his offense. Calcaterra ain't going to be on the team to do that play a month from now. That's going to be Johnny Munt, who can block. But he's running his offense. And, I think people got a little soured on it, but I was actually pretty encouraged because you could see how it's developing and what it's, where it can go. And I find that to be pretty exciting.
Sorry. I'll just say Sean Mannion. I mean, we're not going to see the potential of it with the backups. Like they're not going to run it like a Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley
No,
would. They're not going to do things at the offensive line like Elaine Johnson, a Cam. I strongly feel like Willie Lampkin could take Cam's Jurgens spot this year, but nonetheless, they're not going to do it to that degree, right? So I think you have to take that with a very, very small grain of salt that of what we saw. Like first and foremost, the Eagles are always terrible in the preseason because they never play their starters. That's not a thing. They don't. Nick Sirianni does not believe in playing his starters in the preseason because he doesn't want to risk injury. Like, you imagine losing Saquon Barkley in a freaking preseason game, or Devontae Smith, or Mekhi Lemon for the season, or worse, or
right.
losing Jalen Hurts. Like, these are things that can and possibly will happen if these guys play. We saw the one, was it a preseason game against the Jets where Jalen ran out of bounds and they still hit him like full
Yeah.
throttle.
Yeah, I
Like
remember.
those things can happen, and they could have a bad effect leading into the season. So I get that, and to my point, it should not be an issue. Like this should not be a topic where the offense sucked. Like the backups suck. Like they're backups, guys. Come on. But nonetheless, Sean Mannion did showed signs of life after Patullo, life after the last thread of what Sirianni had in this offense. Now, I'm not saying that Sirianni is not vocal in this offense. I'm saying like Sirianni's structure is like the backbone is not as present as it once was with Patullo, with with Kellen Moore and Brian
I,
Johnson.
I think the main voice that's missing, despite all those coordinators, is Stoutland. I think you look at I wrote about this week. I think it's coming out tomorrow. But you look at that room and the offensive minds that are in that room. Who had a bigger veteran voice than Jeff Stoutland? No one. Nobody had that big of a voice. And now the biggest voice there is Nick Sirianni. And he's probably a little more wavering than most people think. People say, oh, he's stubborn, he's this or that, he's only going to do it his way. He's a little more wavering than that. And the offense is still his. Make no mistake about it. But I think the change that's making the biggest difference is he's the veteran voice in that room now. It's him. He doesn't even have an experienced OC like Kellen Moore. It is him. It is his show. And I think that's a huge difference going forward.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, like everybody that had a tie to the beginning of Sirianni's offensive structure is gone.
Yeah.
There's no Patullo here, and they said Patullo was the brains behind everything at one point, right? There's no Brian Johnson.
Josh Grizzard is probably the most experienced of anybody in there now, but he doesn't have the say that Sirianni does.
Exactly, but I like the direction that they're going in, right? And I like the fact that we backed up, that direction with, yes, we hired Sean Mannion, but like you mentioned, we hired Grizzard as well. Where if Mannion were to get a promotion this year, we have Grizzard to step in and take that role, who's a veteran voice in the league. But yeah, the offense, I have no concern about it because we don't know what it looks like yet. We don't know what Devontae Smith and Mekhi Lemon are going to do. There is one name that I feel like we can talk about possibly in the stock going down. But if we're talking stock up right now, like I think it's still high hopes for the offense. Like this offense, I feel like is going to be a lot better than last year because they're no longer having to heavily target this guy over here in my wall that I got to replace. But if they're going to target this guy and then Mekhi Lemon and then Jalen Hurts, I feel like it's going to be, he's going to be the king of the house at the end of the day. Like he's not to deal with anybody trying to take his throne. But then let's go into stock down because we do got to talk about this. We didn't really see much out of him in this game. We did see that that jet fake pass to him and behind line scrimmage, and then he ended up gaining a couple yards, I think 3 or 4 yards off it. But Hollywood Brown was seen last week working after practice with Jalen Hurts and Mekhi Lemon. Mekhi Lemon was kind of coaching him up on how to run the route, and they were trying to get him to run the route correctly. Brown has not been making the noise or the impact that we expected. It's actually been Wicks. It's been Darius Cooper. Is Hollywood Brown, is his stock trending down? And is it possible that he's not going to be with the team come opening day?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have 5 guys who are definites on this team. There's unquestionably 4, and you just named those 4. And the 5th, I think, is Elijah Moore. He's outplayed him. He also returns punts. He's twitchy. He gets open quick. He kind of fits the mold of what that offense is. Hollywood was brought in here to be a one-trick pony, according to a lot of analysts. Like he's just going to be a vertical threat. But they've been trying to utilize him underneath and over the middle and things like that. And it's been a challenge, quite frankly. He hasn't stood out. He's a very talented athlete. There's almost 4 weeks before they play the Commanders on the 13th or 14th, whatever it is. But I do think he's got an uphill climb, because at this point, if those 5 are on your team, that means in order for him to make the roster, he's going to have to be a 6th wide receiver. And he's also competing against Johnny Wilson, who is, cheaper. People say, oh, they paid Hollywood $5 million. They're not going to let him go. I think he's a $2 million cap hit. They don't care. I mean, if they, they're not going to keep him there for $2 million dead cap. They're not doing it. So I do think he's, I don't like to say anybody's like completely stocked down, but he has an uphill climb to try to overtake some people here.
And looking at I guess piggybacking off uphill climb, right? The quarterback situation got interesting Saturday night.
Yeah.
Andy Dalton, yes, he's a veteran. He's most likely gonna be QB2, but should he be QB2 is the ultimate question, right? Because he didn't look as comfortable in the vanilla scheme of our scheme. Tanner McKee did not take advantage of the opportunity and did not create any separation between him and Andy Dalton. But Cole Payton had some moves out there, and he looked pretty decent. He made things happen with his legs. He was very quick in his decisiveness, and he did throw a touchdown pass to one of your favorite wide receivers, Easy.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to butcher anybody's last name on this podcast anymore today. But Peyton, he gave me a little bit of Wentz vibes at one point. Like he looked that elusive at getting out of the pocket and being quick with his decisions. And he's a lefty. I mean, that's pretty awesome. How do you feel about the quarterback situation heading into the season?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going stock up, Cole Payton definitely was. He was very athletic. His mobility was clearly on display, as you mentioned. He made some big gains on scrambles. He made some big gains on designed runs. He threw the touchdown pass on the move there. And it's an interesting situation, because I think he's already done enough to be QB3 in my mind. Like he's cheap, he's affordable, he's athletic, he has a live arm. He takes a lot of risks. Nothing that can't be coached. So I'm really high on him. So it would come down to Tanner McKee versus Andy Dalton. And the only way, for me, the only way Andy Dalton would be on this team is if they can trade Tanner McKee for like a 4th round pick, maybe a 5th round pick. I don't know. The days of thinking they're getting a 2nd or 3rd are over. But, that would be the only way that Dalton should make the roster in my mind. I mean, he just doesn't fit, what they're doing going forward. I think, Tanner McKee has struggled in some aspects here, but you've seen what he can do when it matters. When he was the backup in 2024, I believe he was a rookie that year. 2nd year or rookie, I can't remember. But he held his own. He was, exciting. He was intriguing. He made you wonder what he could be. The hell, there were people saying trade Jalen Hurts and give the thing to Tanner McKee after a couple games.
Don't wake up those people, please. Please don't wake those people up.
Yeah, it's always crazy, but I still think Tanner McKee is your QB2. I mean, just my opinion. I understand why they brought Dalton in. He is a wealth of information. The other 3 quarterbacks on this roster weren't even 29 years old. This guy's like 38, 39 years old. I mean, he brings a lot of information that, is valuable in a QB room. But as far as on the field, I mean, I don't know, man. If you had to win a game, I'm still rolling the dice with Tanner McKee.
Yeah, and I like Tanner's mobility at times. He's not Cole Payton-esque, right? But he's able to get around, get in and out of the pocket when needed. He stands tall in the pocket. He's able to, he has a hell of an arm, in my opinion. And I never understood the Dalton trade. I get that, having a veteran voice in the locker room, just so, we have Flacco, we have Mariota. But what Mariota had that Flacco and Dalton don't is mobility. And that's what you need in a scheme when your main quarterback is pretty mobile and he can turn the Jets on at any point. You don't want to lose, you don't want to miss a beat when the backup cornerback comes in. You don't want to, have to derail the entire offensive scheme because your guy can't really move his legs. I think you could release Dalton or trade him for, pennies on the dollar. But I do agree with you. Like, if they were to find a trade partner for Tanner McKee, I think Howie pounces on it. Do
Yeah.
I think he should? I don't. I think he should stick to his guns, his young guns in this matter. And I think they should roll with Jalen, McKee, and Peyton. Like, to me, that's a pretty solid quarterback room. And again, we're in the inside looking out, right? Not too many people on the outside looking in are going to agree with that, but for this scheme, I think it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
Is there anybody that you feel like we had honorable mention? Anybody you feel like dishonorable mention of their showing on Saturday and leading up to Saturdays?
No, I think the person that disappointed some people was Bernard, but I think it was just because expectations were far too
Yeah,
high.
yeah. When
And
they
I
get
think,
compared to Myles Garrett,
yeah, yeah. The guy has never played football in his life. I mean, it's insane that he even got drafted. And I think that Eli Stowers caught a lot of strays, and I don't really agree with that. I mean, he played tight end. He started. He took a handful of snaps in the first quarter. He played, from the slot. He played in line. I believe he caught 3 passes. Didn't really go for any, yards. But he also took on some blocks, and people are saying, "Oh, well, he lost one of them, and the other one was, should have been a penalty, and all this crap." But none of that really matters to me. It shows that he's developed. It shows that they're teaching him how to do it, and that the scheme, is allowing him and affording him the ability to, be out there, because he doesn't have to be the best at it. All he has to do is sell it. They just can't have it so every time he's on the field, it's a pass. He's got to be able to be efficient enough, that they can still run the ball, and more importantly, sell that they can run the ball. So I wasn't as discouraged. I don't think it's like this, you know, big red flag like everybody did that, this happened. I think he needs to add some functional strength. I was a big fan of him at college, going all the way back, for a couple years there in Vanderbilt. And I think the way they build their tight ends is really good. They have another really good one this year. He knows a lot about the Eagles because of Jordan Matthews being his coach out there. So I wasn't quite as down on him, but I know most people are.
Yeah, I mean, and to me, it's one of those things, right? He is a rookie. It- he has more promise than what he's going to show you right now.
Yeah.
Come next season, we're going to be talking about, hey, like Eli Stowers should be the guy, Dallas Goedert shouldn't be the guy. Like, these are conversations that are going to happen because naturally he's going to develop during the season. He's going to be the weapon that we want. I think he's going to be a mix between Calcaterra and Dallas Goedert. He's going to develop the blocking, but he's also going to have the yak. He's also going to have the run after the catch.
Yeah.
Given time, because in college he was a stud. Like, let's not, this is a hell of a steal for them in the draft that we just gotta be patient with. Not everybody's gonna hit the moment that they hit training camp.
Look at all of the tight ends Eagles have had. It takes all of them a year to
Mm-hmm.
develop. The position that's just kind of the nature of it as well. But even in Philadelphia, they've always done it that way with the successor plan. Going back from Selleck and then to Ertz and then to Goddard and now Stowers. And before that, I can't even remember who it was. They had somebody else before Selleck. I can't remember who the heck it was. It escapes me. But
Was his first name
and the
Brad?
reason I remember it so well is I bumped into Selleck's wife, Susie Selleck, at the time at a Modell's of all places. And we were talking, and she started telling me that, how upset they were that they brought in another tight end because they thought it was his time or whatever. And then she asked me for my Modell points, which is kind of weird. But hey.
Do you still have Modell points?
No, I didn't use them, and she saw that I bought stuff and didn't have points, and then gave me her card so she could get the points. So,
Ah, okay. That was shout out to Susie Selleck. That was very kind
and
of her.
yeah, interesting story that has no use whatsoever. But
I mean, I'm intrigued. um, so, moving on for Saturday, the Eagles are going to be having joint practices this week with a very familiar face. The New England Patriots will be, I think they're hosting the Eagles, if I'm not mistaken, right?
they are,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so they're hosting the Eagles, and AJ Brown is going to be the topic of conversation. We're going to see a lot of AJ Brown versus the Eagles cornerbacks. But what player do you feel like Eagles fans need to keep their eye on this week throughout joint practices?
Man, I think the practices are going to be better than the game. I mean, I think they're going to be pretty hostile practices, quite honestly.
Celebrity deathmatch hostile, or are we talking about just
I do think that AJ Brown's going to mix it up with somebody. I truly do believe that. He's going to come into it with the chip on his shoulder to a degree, and it's has nothing to do with him and Jalen Hurts. It's going to be somebody on that defensive side of the ball trying to make a name for themselves and probably rub him the wrong way. Could be Q.
I'm going with Reek Willing. I'll
Yeah,
go with Reek.
yeah. I mean, Q. Everybody thinks he's really quiet, but he ain't quiet on that field. So there's people, their personalities I could see clashing. I mean, I expect it to be a very lively practice. As far as people to look at, I'd like to see if Makai Lemon actually joins in this. I mean, I recently was there and saw him working out, and he didn't participate in the practice, but he was doing everything on the side. Like he looks ready to go. He was running routes. He wasn't just on the jugs machine. He was actually doing things. So I'm excited to see, what he could do. But more importantly, I think than the offense, they're going to have ups and downs just going through what they're doing because it's like a starting pitcher trying to learn a new pitch. If he's just learning how to do the curveball, well, sometimes they're going to get knocked out the yard. So the offense is going to struggle some. But I want to see how disruptive this Eagles defense is against a Super Bowl caliber team with AJ Brown added into the mix. Everybody thinks they're a top 3 defense. That's what I'm looking for. I want to see it. So I expect Moro Ajomo to get in the mix. He won't have to fight his own teammate this weekend. So I'm excited for that.
It's definitely gonna be interesting. I think there's gonna be plenty of fireworks, right? How about the Nick Sirianni Mike Vrabel matchup in this practice? Because Mike had a hell of an offseason.
Yeah, he did. And
His first
Sirianni is a
preseason,
fiery guy.
and Nick has his comments. So
Yeah.
but I'm overall just curious to see, like you mentioned, like looking at the measuring stick, see where the Eagles are right now. They're starting offense, where Jalen is. I'm pretty sure somebody's going to be keeping stats out there of interceptions and touchdowns thrown for some foolish reason. But nonetheless, I think it's good that they're having it this early and that they're going to be facing the Patriots of all people. I do expect AJ to get in the tough zone. I wouldn't be surprised if it's with Reek Willen, just because he's the odd man out. He wasn't part of the team last year.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's a measuring stick because people have Drake May ranked in the top 10 of the quarterback list. They have the Patriots being a high caliber team this season. Although a lot of people feel like they could take a huge step back. What do you make of Drake May's comments of saying it's not his job to make everybody happy, that he thinks everybody will be happy if they win?
Yeah, that was really bizarre and a lack of awareness of what's transpired on your team.
Do you think that was intentional, or do you think that's, do you think he's just being naive?
I took it as being naive, but
Okay.
but if it was intentional, it came from the top. It didn't come from just him. That isn't something that he would have just said on the fly like that. That it would have had to have come from the head coach.
I feel like that those comments sound so familiar, right? Like
Yeah,
those comments, they were definitely made in Philadelphia for the past couple of years.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, it's a weird comment. The reason I thought it was just naivete is because it's a really weird comment to do to AJ when you're the one that just traded for him and everything. I mean, that's just silly. So I would be very shocked if it was anything other than just a lack of awareness.
I'm curious. I'm very curious about how this telenovela is going to end.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it's going to be a very feisty practice week. So I'm definitely looking to see what happens. The Eagles will be facing the Patriots on Saturday at 7 o'clock for the second preseason game, which
Yeah.
means we are that much closer to the season starting. So be sure to subscribe to this channel, like, comment, whatever you guys want to say, whatever you guys want to bring up on the show, we'll bring it up on any show, any day of the week. We'll be live next Tuesday at 7:30. Shout out to Corey who's took absent. He's absent today because of a family scenario. So big shout out to him. But yeah, other than that, any final thoughts that you want to give to anybody, even if you want to give advice to anybody on the opposing sideline before things
No,
start.
no, not at all. Just to encourage everyone to start, engaging with us more. This thing's ramping up. Share the podcast, like it, rate it, do all those things. And we're trying to grow, and we'd like you guys to be a bigger part of it. Interact more, maybe do some polls, some questions, get comments during the show. Just try to get everybody more engaged, because we're all in this together. We're all rooting for the same outcomes, the same thing. So hopefully we can grow this thing together as this season goes on. And we have some giveaways coming up soon too.
We do. Definitely pay attention to our Twitter account. David and Corey are cooking up something nice for you guys that they're going to be announcing in the next couple of days. I feel like I'm trying to get a giveaway going from David's wall that I see behind him, but he's not willing to give it away yet. So we're gonna work on that later on. But
I actually got him to sign it, Baby Rhino. I am not letting that thing go.
So obviously I live in the town that Jalen Carter's from. There's actually is it an ice cream or there's a sandwich named after him that I stumbled upon when I went to go eat somewhere. I was like, the Jalen Carter something. So that was a pretty awesome moment for me. But nonetheless, I'm Brian Cameron alongside David Neese. We'll be back next week on Flippin the Birds. Until then, go Birds.
Flip.